What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel, and you guessed it, an Outriders video. Now, I was on a trip this weekend, so I wasn't at home on Friday when People Can Fly released 2 new blog posts specifically regarding Worldslayer, one of them being more kind of logisticy kind of information regarding like when you'll be able to play it and how to get it and all of that. And the other one actually going into quite a bit of detail about what I can only assume is their design philosophy since New Horizon came out last year, and specifically detailing some changes and some thoughts behind why they've made the changes that they have to mods and legendary sets and all of that before the launch of Worldslayer, and why they felt that that was necessary. Now, I haven't scripted this at all, so this is completely off the cuff, off the chest, and so we're going to go through the notes and then I'll give my opinion about it during and afterwards. But I thought it was important to make this video because I do want to have this discussion with my audience. There has been a knee-jerk reaction to this already, kind of like on Reddit, but also even on my Discord. And so people are kind of confused and asking questions and in some cases angry. And yeah, let's open up some lines of communication and let's talk about it. However, it is entirely likely that you might not like my opinion about this topic because more than 2 months ago, I already made a video about this and specifically discussed a lot of the things which were actually addressed in this blog post, and the reason why I thought that there would need to be a change of some sort, whether it's nerfs or whether it's something else. However, I ask you to stick with me through this video. Let's discuss it and then let's get to the end where I can share my final thoughts on it, and then let me know what you think about it in the comments. You ready? Let's go. Before we get into the juriness that is discussing nerfs, I just want to pull your attention to something that came with the other blog post, specifically the one that was kind of like about logistics. And that's this little tidbit here regarding quality of life features. Now, I don't know if this was missed by a lot of people because it wasn't part of the one which is the hot ticket right now. But this is a very good little snippet of information that they decided to share, specifically regarding item locking and stash size increase in loadouts, which is something that players constantly ask for. I can definitely attest to the fact that in the last 2 to 3 months, every stream that I have and every video that I make that has anything remotely to do with Worldslayer, this comes up in the comments with people asking, has there been any development of this? Do we know if it's coming or not? Now, previously I had shared in a video that this was not going to make it into the Worldslayer launch. This again just confirms that. But what this definitely does confirm is that this is on their dashboard and it's something that they're looking to bring to the game. Specifically with item locking, it says that this is currently in development, which is fantastic, but will not be ready for launch. We hope to implement it free via a future patch. Great. Improved quick mark functionality. This is the odd one out of the 4. I don't think this is something that people are asking for as much as the other 3, but specifically this would be because we have an entire new gear category now, which is Apocalypse, so we need some, you know, sort of marking functionality for that as well. Then increasing the stash size, they're saying this is currently being experimented with, but we don't have any news to share regarding this right now. The main challenge here relates to finding a stash size. Basically what it comes down to is they had alluded to it in a previous post, saying that if they drastically increase the stash size, it also drastically increases load in times for players. Now, I know that this is platform dependent. I think it's the least biggest problem on PC, I guess, but obviously bigger problems on certain consoles, especially once we start going to kind of like last generation or previous generation. So this is being experimented with. So essentially they're just looking for the sweet spot there where, you know, it's not like, okay, cool, instead of being 100 now, it's 115. Now 15 extra is not, I mean, yeah, it's 15 more, but it's not anything special and kind of like seems kind of stupid, which is what they're saying. But at the same time, making it like 500 and then it takes you like a minute and a half to load in, which is also, you know, not fucking great. And then last but not least, loadouts. And they're saying that this is not within the scope of Worldslayer launch, though we do continue to recognize players' desire for this feature. Again, just saying that it is on their dashboard and it is something that they're looking at. Then here we go. Outriders Worldslayer launch balancing. Now, because I'm trying to keep the size of this video down a little bit, or rather the length, I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but there are some choice bits which I sort of will pick out and we can sort of discuss. Now, specifically what they mentioned in the top part here, which is kind of like the first big point that I want to make, is that remember that you are getting one side of the information right now. What they're telling you is the design philosophy, and they're giving you some concrete examples of changes that they've made, and in some cases things that they've scaled back, aka nerfs. So they're definitely mentioning the fact that percentage-based modifiers, for instance, was too strong or too lazy in a way, and so they're trying to make the game more interactive, and so they've scaled some of these back. They don't mention exact values, but they do mention that they've done this. Now remember, you're seeing that, but you still haven't played Worldslayer, and there's a whole bunch of things that are also coming to the game. And this has been said by many people, and also what they're saying here, which I think was a very smart decision, is that they're not detailing in this post every single change that they've made. They've made over 100 changes. So first of all, that would be a very comprehensive post, but at the same time, people would get so lost in the reads by looking for their favorite 3 or 4 mods, finding them in that list, and then going, fuck this, I'm not playing the game anymore. They fucked up my favorite build, I don't want it. What we have to remember is we have to give the game a chance to also show you what it looks like now. I can attest to the fact that I've played the beta 1 and beta 2, and with by no means breaking NDA, I can tell you that the game is different. And that of course makes sense. We have a new gear tier in here, which allows for 5 additional mods, at least just on your armor, and then not including what comes on your weapons. And there's new legendary sets, there's new mods, there's a lot of new stuff. So of course the game is different. And so you haven't experienced that yet as a player, but what has been shown to you now is the things that they've changed with what you know right now, the base game. So they're mentioning the builds that you were playing up until this point, and they're mentioning that some things have changed for those builds. Not for all of them and not everything with those builds, but some things have changed. So this is the first point where I kind of feel like people don't necessarily need to overreact at this point. Of course, I can never tell people how they should perceive information, and I can't tell you anything that I'm not supposed to tell you. But the point is this, that you have to be fair in the information that you consume, and you can't just take this that's been shared as what has been changed, but you also haven't seen what is new, and you haven't seen what's come with the game, because at the moment right now you only have half the information. But in any case, let's not get lost into that for too much. Now when we go down a little bit, they sort of carve it into different categories, and let's talk about the first one, which is this general state of combat and difficulty. Now in essence here, this would really be the only part of the post which I was like, man, I don't know if I really agree with it. But basically what it alludes to is, it says that the launch Outriders was very volatile, and so they made some changes, they made some nerfs, we remember that. And so people can fly also, surely because they tested the game and because they themselves play the game, they had an idea of which builds would rise to the top and how people would play the game and all of that. But what they did do though is they kind of like forced you into a race to finish the activities at the top tiers so that you can get rewards that would actually help you gear up better. So in essence, as much as they wanted people to experiment, and as much as they wanted people to sort of play the way that they want to play, which I think has always been a design philosophy for them, the problem was they inadvertently, or maybe I don't know if it's inadvertently, but they accidentally, they created a model which suited people finding the most broken shit and then playing that so that they could finish stuff in the most efficient time, so that they could actually get upgrades and actually get higher in tiers. People will always find the shortest route through something. That's just human nature. Now, what they do say is that this also kind of like created this carry culture, where people often, when they perceived or experienced these difficulty spikes, which we see with things like, challenge, I've always said challenge tiers 9 and 10, and in my mind 12 to 13 was always like, super hectic as well. So while I don't really see a problem with carry culture, I do understand that, someone literally hitting a fucking wall and then not being able to get further without being carried. I've always seen carry culture as a thing of like, I could either sit and grind this shit out for a week and make my way through it eventually, versus I could get someone to carry me and I could do it this afternoon. And that will always be there, and it's always been a thing on my channel, of course, and these days it's not so much even about carrying people anymore as it just is, hanging out together and shooting the shit. So I don't really see a problem with there being such a thing as carry culture and everything, but it definitely does seem that their objective was to sort of smooth out any difficulty spikes and make it easier for people to play the game. Now here they're also saying that they are keeping a close eye on difficulty and progression spikes in Worldslayer, and that to me means that if they do see that, you know, a lot of people stop playing the game at around, I don't know, Apocalypse tier 10 or Apocalypse tier 15 or something like that, then that can mean that they could possibly look at, for instance, smoothing out the difficulty, or maybe the XP requirement around that time, or maybe even the upgrade requirement for gear to level it to that at that time, to essentially make it easier for people to hit that. However, not a lot to sort of freak out in that above part. Now I think here we start coming to some more interesting things, and this basically saying that build sets and mods over and underperformers, the idea here is that no matter what and no matter what they wanted to do, there was going to be a meta. Now they are mentioning that they never wanted it to be competitive enough that there would be a meta, but I counter that with saying that every game has a meta. It literally just simply means the most efficient and strongest way of doing something, you know, generally becomes the meta. And in a game like this, where even though you're not competing against each other, you are trying to do, now that they've taken timers out of the place, that's fine, because now you can use any build to get your reward, and there's a ton of players that do that. It also comes down to a time management thing where people are saying, you know what, I want to kind of get my character from, you know, Apocalypse, or let's say CT 10 to CT 13 tonight, and so I'm going to try and run expeditions which I can run the fastest, and I'm going to try and make a build that can mass clear and clear things the quickest, you know, something like that. The point is, and that can then in essence become the meta build, for instance, like we see with speedrun pyro, or, you know, all clear pyro or whatever. The bottom line is there will always be such a thing as meta builds, and I do commend them, however, for trying to sort of meet this problem halfway. They definitely could have just nerfed these meta builds down and made them as shit as the rest, but they kind of like attacked it from two sides, and that is that they are making some changes, aka yes, nerfs. They are reducing some of the values on these meta sets, but at the same time they're also bringing some of the other sets up, almost like in a we'll meet you halfway kind of, you know, mentality. So again, those details aren't shared here. These are simply words where they're saying this is what we want to do. But of course, what prickles people is the fact that they mention these meta builds by name. So they're mentioning, well, one for each of them, right? Borealis, Akari, Seismic, and Trespasser. Now, these are for sure, four of the really strong meta builds in the game, but they're also ones which are generally very easy to construct in a way, because they only revolve around a key set of mods to essentially, you know, attain the majority of the power that you need with that. Anything else that you add onto that is filler. A very good example would be Akari. Up until the point where you can have a lot of the mods and all of the skills, and the build is okay when you use Ash Blast, Overheat, and you're hitting stuff with Heat Wave and everything like that. But the minute you get the 3-piece bonus of Akari, you basically achieve the power level, or let's say 75 to 80% of the power level that set, that build, that meta build can achieve. And so then you can fill out some of the other mods and everything like that, but you kind of don't have to, because at that point you're strong enough to do most CT15s extremely comfortable, especially once you learn how to play it and you learn positioning and all of that. And so then everything else just becomes a plus onto that. Now, they do mention essentially what I just said right now, which is the burden of optimal play and all of that. But the idea here really for me seems that they do recognize the fact that people are sort of magnetically attaching themselves to these very powerful sets, these very powerful builds. And what they want people to do is feel more comfortable in trying out some of the other sets, trying out Torturers, Plague Sower, whatever, all of that, and feel that they're not underperforming by, you know, like more than 200% compared to something like Akari, for instance. Now, again, not detailing exactly the changes that they've made, but saying that this was in the back of their heads when they did this. Of course, we as players now will have to now jump into the content when Worldslayer comes out, test these things, try it out and see, okay, cool. Like, you know, Torture is actually pretty damn cool now. It's not as good as Akari, but it's not complete dog water compared to Akari as it was before, as an example. Now, they are also talking about the fact that, and I think that this is something that hinders most games that are kind of like of this nature, is that they want people to, again, like I said, experiment with unique playstyles, instead of going like onto Reddit or going onto Outriders Outpost or going onto Discords, anything like that, and basically going like, what is the strongest build for Akari? Sorry. Yeah, what is the strongest build for Akari? What is the strongest build for Pyro? Oh, okay, cool. It's like speedrun Pyro or something like that. And then just take that, boom, boom, boom. Okay, this is what I need, copy it, and there you go. Which, funnily enough, speedrun Pyro doesn't even use Akari. But in any case, my example stands. So they do mention some specific changes here, and I'm actually a huge fan of this. The fact that they mentioned that, you know, the changes to Asunder for Earthquake, for instance, taking into account that that mod can be used more for anomaly power builds, and so therefore it makes more sense that it actually reduces resistance instead of armor, because if it reduces armor, that does nothing for you with an anomaly build. Now, I do have to apologize at this point in time because I'm literally sitting here and melting. It is a sweltering day here at home today, so you guys are gonna have to bear with me. Okay, so then we get to weapons balance. This is specifically, I mean, let's be honest, this is just about tactical assault rifles. Tactical assault rifles are so drastically better than any other weapon in the game that if you are using a gun and you're not using a shotgun, you should be using a tactical assault rifle. I understand that you love LMGs and all of that stuff, and that's fucking cool. I really like that, and you should continue on using those if they make you happy. But if you want the strongest option other than a shotgun, it's a tactical assault rifle. So this has been a big problem for them, and so they're trying to get people to get away from those. And again, I really like their approach here. So they didn't just go like, okay, cool, decrease tactical assault rifles damage. Okay, cool, problem solved. People will use other guns now because this shit is like nerfed into the ground now. No. They went and looked at the other weapon types and then said, how can we tweak these to make them more attractive to use? So not just upping their damage, but let's look at their damage range, or let's look how fast they shoot, or let's look how stable their fire is. Maybe we can make them like very stable, so it's like a laser beam, so it's, you know, very cool to use for accuracy or anything like that over distance, you know, whatever, something like that. Or critical multipliers is another great example. So this part here again as well, we knew it was coming any time now. Tactical assault rifles lasted super long in the limelight. I mean, guys, it's more than a year now that they haven't been touched, and they, like I said, are pretty much like the go-to for any bullet class, again, as long as you're not using shotguns and you want to be fighting up close. And even then, sometimes you know, if you're really accurate and you can work with it in close range, it might even be a good idea. But then when we get to this part here, and I think this might be where we spend the majority of this conversation, if I, you know, manage not melting, is amplifier builds. Now, amplifier builds meaning, you know, basically what this is builds that stack a lot of mods that give you percentage-based increases to damage. The example that they use here is the perfect example, because one of the things that makes Borealis Technomancer so good is the fact that right off the cuff, with the actual set itself, you get a huge boost of damage to freeze. Then there are two mods in the game which give you additional damage to freeze. Now, since you're using blighted rounds, there are also two mods in the game that give you additional damage to things that are toxic. So then you have all of those stacking together. Then what you do is, on top of that, you stack mods that trigger off you killing enemies or you getting crits on enemies, anything like that. And so what this does is it creates this like maelstrom of this plus this plus this plus this plus this, and in many cases you are double or triple dipping into those, and it is a very I don't know if it's the right way to put it really, but it's a very non-interactive way of stacking mods onto your character. Don't get me wrong, it is really, really effective, and it makes, that is one of the reasons why Firepower Technomancer is so ridiculously good. It's simply because of this. Like, if you get the right combination of these mods on your gear, you're good to go. And then the next thing is just hitting those shots. And the point is, where I remember a time when we were playing Bullet Techno where it was really, really important that you were really good at hitting crits. But because you are lathering the build with all of these other mods that do more damage against stuff that's frozen and toxic and all of that, it kind of decreases the need for you to even be hitting crits. Now body shots are just as good. Yeah, fine, it takes 2 or 3 more spins of an assault, tactical assault rifle to drop something, but who cares? You're dropping everything in 2 bursts, including, massive bosses and essentially like every elite in the game. So it really isn't a problem. So this is something that they've looked at. They want active gameplay effort. In other words, they want you to do something to trigger those mods. They want you to feel like okay, if I do this, I get the damage, and then when I do this, then I get the damage as well. The best way that I find of making an analogy to this is, you know, you could either just be standing there and emptying your clip into an enemy, and with every bullet extra that you shoot, you deal more damage until the thing is dead. Super uninteractive way of doing it. But then imagine another way where, okay, cool, and this is just, I'm just making a shitty example here, but run with me, is you shoot your first burst, and then when you dive and roll, that gives you a damage boost, and when you shoot then something in the head, that gives you another damage boost, and then you, I don't know, let's make up something really kooky for the fourth one, then and there's a mod that does this, a orb appears above an enemy's head, which you pop, and then it does an AoE attack. Now that is the kind of style that they want you to play, and I know at this very point in time I'm contradicting something very important that I always praise them on, meaning that People Can Fly want you to play the game that you know, the way that you want to play the game. However, I think at the same time as well, they want you to play the game and not just stand there with your finger on the mouse. So I know that I'm super simplifying a lot of what I'm saying here, and I apologize if I ruffle some feathers by, you know, insulting your favorite character class and the way that you choose to play it, and, you know, making it seem very easy. It's not my intention. I'm just trying to explain what they're trying to do here and what their philosophy is. Now, when we get lastly to the trigger part here, this is the part that I think I've seen a lot of people, and I don't know if people are misunderstanding it or purposefully, you know, sort of like not paying attention to the fact that this is in a way something that people have been asking for a long time. So what they've looked at is they've looked at the trigger mechanisms for a lot of, and this affects a lot of the bullet based, you know, characters. And one of the things that is, especially if you play multiplayer in this game and you're not the host, it becomes exceedingly difficult for you to actually hold bullets and for you to be able to feed those reload mechanics, because enemies can die to you know, like somebody else's fucking poison just before you get that final, you know, kill shot or headshot or anything like that. And yeah, it just generally becomes difficult for you to sometimes keep your bullet skills up. Now, I'm not saying that this change solves all that problem. Netcode and things like that will always still be a problem, but this is a step in the right direction, because the trigger mechanics that you have here, or the way that they want to do it now, is that they're essentially saying that you kind of have like two ways that you can go here. So you have like an on hit or successful shot mechanic, where anywhere hit the monster in its fucking toe or whatever, and it goes off. And then you also have critical shot, and you so you can see here we transitioned many of the on kill or critical kill to successful shot or critical shot. Now, critical kill, for instance, for me was a fucking nightmare, because sometimes you just couldn't pull it off because the enemy would move in a weird way, and because so much of your reload and so much of your actual damage depended on the fact that you needed to get a critical kill to continue on, or to get your clip back, or to get some of your clip back. That really was super disheartening when you couldn't actually get that shot. Maybe even one of your teammates ran in front of you and body blocked it, it hit some fucking titanium grass, anything like that. Again, I'm not saying that those things won't happen anymore, but there's a less chance of something frustrating happening than that. So this part here, this here for me is actually something that should have probably happened a long time ago, when people started complaining about this issue in the first place. And that essentially gets us through the notes and everything like that. So let's just get some final thoughts on this now. So to close things out, I'm going to say that I think People Can Fly did this in exactly the right way. They could have easily prepared a blog post with all 107 mods in, with the changes from the way that the mod was to the way that it works now, and simply saying, here you guys go, tear the internet apart. Or they could have done it in this way, which is very inviting and into their way of thinking, and explaining the reason behind some of the changes that they were going to make. Either which way, this was news that was always going to be not loved by the community and not appreciated by the community, but that is it, and it was something that needed to be done. I personally think that the whole build scene and builds and all of that for Worldslayer, or Outriders rather, will completely change when this expansion comes out. And me, as a channel that often does builds, this is certainly a very daunting thing. I'm fully realizing in the fact that if I sit and I make a build for a pyromancer and I have 5 pieces of armor with a specific 5 mods rolled onto the third slot, which cannot be manipulated in any way and is completely RNG, it can be impossible for someone else to get the same simply due to the fact of them having RNG that never drops those pieces for them. That means to me that the entire idea of builds in this game is about to completely change, with rather builds focusing around an idea of what it's supposed to do, but then allowing you to kind of build it your way. And so the build has a certain core principle in the way that it has to work, but then there's like a list of 10 to 12 to 15 or whatever how many mods that could do the thing. And while your version of it might be really good at killing humans very fast, this version of it might be really good at getting monsters because they're all up in your face. Your build might be better at getting long range, mine might be better at short range, but the sort of the blueprint, the foundation of the build will revolve around this core principle. And I welcome that. We had one way of playing the game now for a year, and it's time for something new, almost in a way like going from one season to the other. And I think for the longevity of this game, this is important. I know that people can fly, want to build a franchise out of this. They want to make this into something that has legs and that can stand up on its own next to games of its type that have been around for many years. And certainly understanding the fact that they need to tweak some things, even to the detriment of some people being really angry with them because it messes with their perfect builds, is one of the things that you need to do. I want to reiterate again that we have to remember that you have one side of the information now, and you have a whole bunch of ambassadors, and you have a whole bunch of people that have played beta 1 and 2, and I've not seen one of them not saying that, guys, wait until you see what actually gets added to the game before you pass your judgment. Remember that you've only seen one side, you need to see the full picture. But at the same time, no one is forcing you to buy this game, and no one is forcing you to pre-order this game. Early access starts on Tuesday, and if you choose to not buy the game, I guarantee you that by the time Friday and the official launch of the game rolls in, you will have more than enough information from your friends and from the channels that you like to watch and from the internet to make maybe a more informed decision. So vote with your money and make your decision that way. There is no advantage to playing this game sooner than someone else, because in the end, it's inherently a single player game, and it is so much more about your own enjoyment than it is about keeping up with other people and staying, ahead of the pack. So if you feel unsure about it, and if that blog post has made you worry that you might be spending your money wrongly, give it a couple of days and then make your decision. But that's it from me. I appreciate you for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about this, and how those patch notes make you feel, what you think about what I said, and more importantly, if you're still looking forward to the game. That's it from me. Take it easy. Have a fantastic morning, afternoon, and evening wherever you are in the world. I'll see you soon. Fucking cheers.
They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me.